What's up, guys? Chris Brown from Train Boston coming at you with another wellness moment. I want to start things off with a question. Have you thought about mindfulness or mental wellness in any aspect of your training? And when I say training, it could be therapy, it could be physical exercise, it could be nutrition, or anything of the like. Well, whenever I'm looking at my programming for an individual, I look at their plan to make sure that they're hitting every single one of my pillars. My pillars are exercise, and that could be any form of exercise. Restorative movement, which I like to look at as anywhere from yoga or Pilates to going for a walk or just getting outside and moving. Hydration and nutrition, sleep, respiration and breathing and ribcage mechanics, and mental or mindfulness. All right. Now, I want you to think of mindfulness specifically today, and I want you to think of it as a way to enhance those other pillars, because mindfulness creeps its way into all those other pillars and is just as important. All right, because without mindfulness in your other pillars are less sturdy. They will crumble more easily. Now, let's look at why we want to be more mindful. All right, well, let's start off that discussion with an example. You probably have an alarm clock. Just by thinking about that name, you hear the word alarm, and it thinks of setting you off. It's abrupt, it's rigid, it's anxiety inducing, right? Do we want to start our day off that way? Probably not. So that's just something to think about. We're probably throughout our entire day in that state of alarm, panic, anxiety. And more specifically, we're distracted by lots of different things. All right. I like to talk about what Dan John said when he talks about success, and he talks about having shark habits. And shark habits mean you're acting like a shark. You're seeing something needs to be addressed, and you quickly hit it, take care of it, take that bite, and swim away. You don't ignore things. You don't put them off. You just make sure they get done if they have to be done. If they have to be done, you get them done. Like you see your tank or your gas is almost on empty, you fill it up. You open an email, you answer it. If you don't need to deal with it, it's not important, you let it, you acknowledge it, you register it, and then you let it go. All right? So those are important. And the rest of the things he talks about dealing with, he calls treasure maps. You write out, you do this, then you go to this, then you go to that, and then you go to that. And that's his plan for success. Mindfulness means remembering to bring your attention to something, to in the direct moment specifically. And that's what we really have a hard time doing. Often we'll be doing a task, but we'll be thinking about 5 other things, or maybe we'll be doing 5 tasks at a time. In our country, we tend to say multitasking is great. Having 20 tabs open on your laptop is great because you're doing so many things. But in reality, you tend to not be doing any one thing really, really well. All right. So let's look at how we can be more mindful. Mindfulness is a lot of things, but there's a lot of misinformation about it as well, which is why a lot of people don't want to do it and they're so dismissive of it. So first of all, mindfulness can be done through physical touch, or what I call haptic feedback. All right. For instance, haptic feedback can come from touching your muscle while you're using it. If I'm doing a one-arm bench press, I just put my fingers on my chest and I notice, hey, my chest is contracting and I probably am going to feel it more intensely. All right. That's just one way to feel things better. Bodybuilders have been using that for ages to get a better contraction. There can be physical feedback that's non-visual as well as visual. So you could not be looking at your muscle, or you could be looking at it. For instance, if you're standing up and I tell you, put more weight in your right heel, make that right heel heavy. Go ahead, I'll give you a second to try it. Stand up, put all your weight on your right foot without lifting your left foot off the ground. Make it heavy. Think about what you're feeling. Now, hopefully, if you're on that heel, you should feel the back of your leg. More specifically, we want you to feel your butt, your glute. All right? Now, if you're on both feet and you're not thinking about it, you're probably not activating your glute too well. That's just another example of mindfulness. All right, another good example is you grab a dumbbell. I got one behind me, but I got a 15 here as well. All right? You hold the dumbbell, whatever. But then I tell you, let's crush that dumbbell. as hard as you can. What do you feel? If you have a dumbbell, it's great because you can use this example right now. But all of a sudden, I notice my bicep turned on. But when I just hold it naturally, right here, I don't feel much. But if I hold it up here and I squeeze, my bicep's on intensely. All right? That's something I noticed because I'm being mindful, okay, of what I'm doing in the moment of the exercise. Okay? There's also non-visual versions of it. You can close off one sense and enhance another. All right? This is something that's done a lot in meditation, but it can be done in a lot of other ways. For instance, I like to talk about walking in a dark room. When you come to bed at night, your lights are off. You use your other senses to figure out where you are in the room. That could be smell, it could be touch, it could be even taste. You maybe can taste something in the air. Hopefully not in your bedroom, hopefully it's pretty clean. But it could be something like you just washed your sheets and you can smell it. Maybe you have a specific type of flooring and you can feel it. Maybe you put your hand out and you touch when you can't see. It's amazing what you can do when you have to turn one sense off. But that means you're being a lot more mindful. All of a sudden, you're not worried about what visual distraction you have. Okay? There can also be more of a analytical through thinking about things mindfulness. For instance, you find something that's in front of you. Maybe it's your keyboard on your computer screen. Focus. What is going on that computer screen? Maybe you'll notice there's buttons you've never used on that computer screen. What does Alt-GR do? Why is there an F10 and then there's a little symbol underneath it that says an airplane on it? I've never used that. All of a sudden you gain new information by being more mindful. I'd like to tell people that you should be the best at what you're doing at that moment that you can be. Some of you may have heard of Dan Carlin. He does a podcast about history. It's really good. Check it out if you have a chance. He talked about the Japanese culture, and specifically, he does a lot of World War I and II stuff, but he talks about their culture in general, and they still hold on to this to some extent, that they take a craft and they master it. Every single thing they do, from being a medical doctor to being a janitor. They're the best damn janitors you can be. I don't care if you're raking your yard. You're going to rake that yard the best possible way every day. You're going to think about how you did it. You're going to get better at it the next day. You're going to notice the scents, the smell, the sights. Anything that distracts you, you push it away. Okay? You can analyze almost every task you do and really own that task. All right, so be more like that when you're doing something important. And of course, there's more of an internal mindfulness. And that doesn't have to be internal thinking about breathing, but it can be internal thinking about an experience you've had in the past. All right. So for instance, if you're looking at a task you performed at work or in the gym, you can think about that right after you did it and recap in your head. How did I feel when I did this task? Did I do it my best? Was I focused? What went wrong? How did it going wrong make me feel? And what can I do to make it better? That in itself is mindful. And then, of course, we get to the breathing and meditation. Now, here's where people tend to tune out, and I don't want that. I want you to think of breathing and meditation in isolation. I don't want you to think of it as this soothing, calming, light a candle and relax thing, because it can go either way. If you're a big comic book fan like myself, you may have heard of the Iron Fist. The character Danny Rand, he was trained by monks to be this ultimate weapon, and that's irrelevant. But what he used to do is he would put his headphones on and he would listen to hip-hop music, because that's what he loved before he became this Iron Fist. And he would use the hip-hop music, angry, loud hip-hop music, to meditate. Because what he could do is he could be mindful of the music and the beat, and he would use that to focus. He'd focus his chi specifically, but I'm not going to get into that so much. As I want to say that music, regardless of how loud it is or the beats or what type of music it is, it can help you be mindful. Music can be very tough to do that with because there's a lot of distractions within that music, but it is one way you can be mindful. Okay? Exercise is another example of that, where exercise has a lot of distractions, a lot of factors as well, and you tend to get fatigued while you do it. So it's not the easiest thing to be mindful with at first. And that's where having a coach can really help out. All right. So let's go through a few reasons why this can be tough, and what are kind of things that people don't realize about mindfulness. First of all, it doesn't have to be typical meditation. We just talked about that. It does not need to be clinical. You'll probably practice mindfulness in a therapy setting. Maybe a massage therapist will help you practice it. It doesn't have to be about nutrition or something boring, something you don't like. It doesn't mean sympathetic or parasympathetic. Again, sympathetic means arousal, it means excited. It means energetic, turned on, fight or flight. Parasympathetic, and again, feed or fuel. It means relaxation, restorative. Mindfulness can be either one. Okay, so you don't have to think of it as this boring, slow-paced thing. It can go either way. It's just easier to become sympathetic than it is to become parasympathetic, and that's why we talk about it and harp on it a lot more. It really does require mental energy. So when you're first learning how to be mindful, you don't want to do this when you're really tired or really distracted at the end of the day, and you certainly don't want to do it when you're influenced by other factors such as drugs, alcohol, things like that. Maybe you had too much caffeine even. Maybe you didn't get good sleep the night before. These are things that make it really tough to focus. So try to do it earlier in the day, depending on your circadian rhythm. That may be a few hours either way, but try to find a time when you're energized. Okay? And again, make sure you're not taking too much caffeine when you do that. It can make it very tough. Okay, and another thing is your position when you're being mindful, or I could also say whether you're comfortable is important. If you're in pain, that's an extremely hard thing to turn off, and we probably shouldn't ignore it. So if you're in pain, you got to fix that thing that's in pain, because eventually pain will become injury. If you're uncomfortable, discomfort can sometimes turn to pain to injury. So you just got to be aware of when you're trying to be mindful. Are you in a state that you can pay attention? Are you in a state where you can do something difficult that requires a lot of focus? And that's where this meditation thing gets a little bit weird for people, because they start seeing this monk or this yogi sitting in what we call Lotus Position with their legs crossed. It's very close to crisscross applesauce. They see their hands like this, and they see them chanting Om, and they see them breathing in and out, and they get turned off by that very relaxed and that's not me state. In an earlier talk, I talked about how change can feel very weird. It feels like it's not me, it's not genuine, and it will feel that way until you practice it, until you create those behaviors and go over and over and over with them, and then it does finally feel like you. Now, when you practice mindfulness, you may not feel like a yogi. You may not feel like the person that you saw doing it or the person who taught you how to do it. You may not feel like me, who knows? But you will be good at it, and it will feel like it's you now. Okay? So let's just real quick, we'll bring it back to that comfortable position, that Lotus Position. So Lotus Position, the reason why they do Lotus Position is it's a very structurally balanced position. However, if you got hips like me that aren't that great, having that crossed left leg over right leg position, it may not feel good for your hips. And guess what? You're not going to focus in that position. So there's two things you can do in that position. You can elevate yourself, sit a little bit higher. I like to use a pad or two thick pillows. Or you can just sit in a chair. Now I'm sitting upright in a chair. I have support in my back. That makes it very easy. I have my legs turned out to the side. You can't see it here, but that's how I have it. And I can very easily turn my palms up. Now I like this palms up position, not because it's what everyone else does, but because when I turn my hands over and under, you can see what's happening at my upper trapezius muscles. They tend to shrug. So I like that palms up position. It's a very easy position to get your upper traps to relax. That's why I like the palms up position. We rest them on our knees because it's comfortable. It's in front. It's not out here. Again, this is hard to keep without doing something weird. So hands in. And the other thing is we want to close our hands. You'll see this a lot, but I like to just let your fingers come in. They're closed, they're supported. If you just take a second to think about your hands, when you keep them out here, they might tremble, they might want to move. When you put them here, they feel a little bit more relaxed. You're not clenching, but you're just touching them together, okay? That's what they call closed or connected, all right? it's stable, all right? And that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for this to be too much of a yogi thing. We're not looking for it to be necessarily a monk or meditation thing. We're just looking for it to be comfortable so we can focus, okay? And another thing is there are a lot of things that can affect your focus that may not be physical. They might be physical, but just be aware of what's affecting you right now. For instance, I mean, the phones and computers are the biggest thing. So if you are on a phone or computer right now, that might be pretty distracting. So it'll be tough to not look at it. However, you also want to look at, are there any loud noises around me? Is there anything that's vibrating the room? Are there any strong smells? Abrupt changes in things like light. All those things can affect you. They can make your nervous system go up and down either way, parasympathetic or sympathetic. Typically, changes in things, abrupt changes especially, will jack that sympathetic back up. So we want to stay away from those things. All right. Now, I'm not going to hold you to that in these next few minutes here, but we're going to practice. We're going to run through 2 different variations of mindfulness. Okay. So the first one I'm going to do is with a dumbbell curl. Now, you guys don't have to do this, but if you have a dumbbell or something like a dumbbell, go ahead and try to follow along. But I want you to think about a dumbbell curl in a mindful way. So I got my dumbbell here. Okay. Now, we talked about gripping it really tough. All right. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do 2 or 3 bicep curls. This is 15 pounds. So for me, this is pretty light. You don't need to see my bicep really, but I'll show it to you. Now I'm going to do 2 or 3. I'm going to think about how this feels, okay? But I'm not really paying much attention. Yeah, I have to feel it. It's on. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is not only am I going to put my fingers on my bicep, but I'm going to think about how hard am I gripping this dumbbell. All right. I'm going to think about how fast am I moving up and down. Where is the position of my elbow when I do that curl? Do I feel my shoulder going up and down? I'm going to think a lot, okay? So I'm going to even visually look at my bicep, okay? So I got my elbow forward. I'm crushing that dumbbell. My wrist is curled upwards. I immediately notice my veins are pronounced. It's already a little harder than it was. And I'm keeping my elbow forward. I'm keeping my shoulder down and back. And I'm just curling up. I'm thinking about putting pressure through my pinky finger more. I'm coming up high, bringing my elbow forward, but not all the way. I'm keeping that crush. Looking at that bicep, those veins are starting to pop more, and I'm coming down nice and slow. And I'm going to come all the way to a straight arm. I'm going to keep that pinky side turned up, still crushing it, still keeping my elbow forward, still keeping that shoulder blade in place. Ooh, and man, it is burning. All right, now I'm going to put my fingers on there, and I know that is working. The fingers add even more. I can feel it. I can see it. All right. And that is a good bicep curl with 15 pounds, which is very light for me. I'm feeling that in my bicep quite a bit more than if I was just doing the regular curl. Okay. So that's one way to be mindful. That is a sympathetic way to be mindful. I could have done that with both arms. I could have done that with any exercise. Go ahead and try that with a squat. It becomes incredibly tough, but it also helps you figure out what's going wrong with the motion if it doesn't feel good. If there's pain, you're doing something wrong, or you need intervention of some sort and shouldn't be doing it yet. All right. Another example in the squat is a lot of times people don't let their knees go forward. Maybe that's because they've been given bad information, or maybe they're afraid. Sometimes being mindful means letting something go. You need to let your knees go forward a little bit. As long as your heels stay flat on the floor and you can feel the right stuff, let things happen. That's mindful too. You're being aware of allowing things to happen. That goes often with the breathing. You're allowing yourself to breathe in, breathe out, whether it's through your nose, your mouth. You're allowing it. You're aware that you're allowing it. That's what's most important. Okay, now we're going to go through another thing called progressive muscle relaxation, or you might see it as PMR. Okay, we're just going to do a few quick ones here. A lot of times people work all the way from the toes up to the ears, but we're just going to have you do it through your feet. Closing your eyes can help here as long as you don't think you're going to fall asleep. And we are going to talk about breathing, but we're not going to get too deep into that in this session. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to sit down. I want you to be supportive in a supportive chair, that relaxed position where you can actually focus. Okay, hopefully you're in a room where there isn't too many distractions. Okay, if you want to, you can close your eyes, but you don't have to. First thing I want you to do is take a deep breath in through the nose, put the tongue at the roof of your mouth, and I want you to breathe out through your mouth. Okay, so try to take 3 seconds in and 3 seconds out. Notice I took a small pause before I breathed out. Let's do that again. Hold your breath. Let it all out. All right, so that's getting us primed to be more parasympathetic here. So what we're going to do first, we're going to try to flex our calves. All right, we're going to breathe in. Flex our calves by lifting your heels up as high as they can go. Keep them flex, 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 flex. Try to get them to cramp even. Maybe cramping if you're dehydrated especially. That's something mindful, thinking about what you did to get you where you are. We're going to keep them holding. Try to get them as high as you can. Try to keep the big toes through the ground. And on the next breath out, we're going to relax them. Keep them going. And relax them. Now we're going to breathe in. We're going to think about our quads. I want you to have your feet flat on the floor. And think about shoving your feet forward. That should turn your quads on. Keep breathing. You should be feeling your quads turning on. And on this breath out, we're going to relax them. Now we're going to think of pulling the ground back with our heels. Pull, pull, pull. Should be feeling the back of your legs turning on. Feet are flat, heels are under the knees. We'll do one more breath and we're going to relax on the breath out. All right, last one we're going to do here is our butt. I want you to think of tucking your pelvis forward and clench your butt. Tuck that pelvis. You might feel your abs turn on a little here. And relax. All right. So what that's trying to do is get you to relax through a series of breathing and contractions and relaxation. You can do that with your entire body, and that's a great way to practice what we've been talking about in mindfulness. All right. So let's go over, how did those two things differ? One was a little bit more intense. One was more focused on being intense and sympathetic, but it was still very mindful. The other one would go up and down from intense to relaxed in an effort to ultimately relax you. All right, that one was more focused on the breathing. Now, both of them are mindful. I want you to consider that. We need to practice both of them, but probably you are better at being sympathetic. So I would emphasize the parasympathetic type of mindfulness, whether that's meditation, whether you do it in your yoga class, whether you do it in Pilates, it doesn't matter. As a coach, I'm going to try to be doing that more often with all of my individual clients and groups. All right. And what I encourage you to do if you're going to do this on your own is to treat it like any goal you should have and make it into a SMART goal. Specific, measurable, realistic, attainable, I skipped attainable, and time constrained. I also say tell someone and track it. Okay, if it's not measurable, it's not something you can realistically attain. Okay, so reflect on it every time you do it. Tracking it is the key to every goal. Did you do it daily? If you set up a goal to do it 5 times a week, which is a good starting point for 5 minutes a day, did you do it? If you didn't do it, you need to reflect and write down why you did not do it so you have tools to make sure you do it next time. How did it go if you did do it? Why was it good or bad? And can you do better? Because ultimately we want to progress eventually, hopefully within a week or two. Tell someone about the experience. Maybe that's your coach, maybe that's your spouse, maybe it's your friends. And then program it. Once you understand it, you've gone through it a little bit, put it into your program. If you don't have a program, now's the time to start working on that. But if you do have a program, where can you fit mindfulness in? Maybe mindfulness starts at the beginning of every session. Maybe mindfulness is a focus you have every 3rd day. Put it into the plan, okay? Now, before I end here, I want to thank Neil Roberts and Dan John. They were 2 speakers I listened to this weekend. They gave me a lot of information here. And just talk about how their stuff has influenced me and allowed me to become a better coach over the last few days here. So I just want to give credit where credit's due. Otherwise, I want to thank you all for watching this video. And it's a little bit of a long one today, so I appreciate it. And I just want to leave you with one sentiment, and that is make sure that you start off and end every day feeling and being well. All right? Until next time, this has been a wellness moment, and stay well. Thank you.